I am going to engage in a debate with Nando. Something hasn't been sitting well with me, and I felt like I needed to speak up. So we're going to actually start the show with that. Let's get right to it.
Let's do it.
So Nando seems to have some sort of issue with Daniel Dale. Now, he is the CNN fact checker. On name alone, on title alone, I get it. You can suspect that there's going to be some weak sauce activity by any type of legacy media or corporate media fact checker. However, I think Daniel Dale is okay. Okay? Yeah. Like, I'm not going to insult him by calling him dorky, but like he can be dorky, you know? And I don't think that's an insult. But I think like in the context of mainstream media fact checkers who usually tend to be awful, awful people who do like these insane, unfair fact checks on socialists and progressives, Daniel Dale seems to be a little more fair, okay? So I want to give you an example, and then I want to hear your case for why you're such a Daniel Dale hater. So this is after Donald Trump's RNC speech. This is the video that went viral. Many people were talking about it because he went 3.5 minutes straight fact-checking Trump. I'm not going to make you watch the whole 3.5-minute video, but I'll give you a little taste. Watch.
Anderson, this president is a serial liar, and he serially lied tonight. I counted preliminarily more than 20 false or misleading claims. I want to go through a whole bunch of them quickly because I think it's all important. Trump said Joe Biden is, quote, talking about taking down the border wall. Biden has specifically, explicitly rejected that idea. He just said he'll stop further additional construction. Trump claimed, as always, that he is the one who passed the Veterans' Choice Law. Barack Obama signed that into law in 2014. Trump signed a 2018 law to modify it. Trump said, I have done more for the African-American community than any president since Abraham Lincoln. That is ludicrous. Lyndon Johnson, for one, signed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. Trump again touted a, quote, record 9 million job gain over the past 3 months. He didn't mention, as usual, that that gain follows a record 22 million job loss over the previous 2 months. He said he'll, quote, continue to lower drug prices. They've increased during his presidency. He said they opened a Jerusalem embassy for less than 500,000. Early documents show it was at least 21 million.
Okay, so you guys get the picture. He went on and on and on, and, you know, his fact checks were fair, they were accurate. But Nando, the thing that I really appreciated about that video, especially as someone who, you know, knows the annoying minutia of ethical journalism, so-called journalists are like not supposed to ever refer to politicians as liars, right? So they never say it, and it's a rule, right? If it's an unspoken rule for the most part, but they avoid doing it because they don't want to seem as though their critique or whatever it is too partisan. And so I appreciate that he calls Donald Trump a liar because that's what Donald Trump is. I wish and I hope that in the future, when politicians are lying, that type of criticism is extended to them as well, and it's not just saved specifically for Donald Trump. But look, it's not easy to like stand there or sit there, in his case, for 3.5 minutes and like fact check without a script, which most, you know, television broadcasters do have.
I'm useless without. For sure.
You're not. But you get what I'm saying. Like, I think he's a little better than most of the crap that we get on cable news.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason why I recoil from that kind of thing is because the fact check industry writ large, which is something that is relatively recent in journalism, has proven time and time again to be a sort of referee for the status quo. You know, there's the famous kind of, I mean, Glenn Kessler of the Washington Post, who was kind of the most famous fact checker in America, is like notorious for this, right? I mean, he constantly cites incredibly shoddy reasons for calling things like, you know, Medicare for all like unfeasible or something, and he cites that as fact, right? I mean, there was like also like the absurd kind of ticky-tack nature of it. You know, like I remember when Philip Bump of the Washington Post fact-checked Bernie Sanders for saying that the average campaign donation or something was $27. Instead, it was like $27.46, you know, or something like $27.46 or some absurd fact check like that. And and I remember even like the PolitiFact, when they do like their lie of the year, like use like an Obama statement on the Affordable Care Act, which was like plainly not the lie. It probably wasn't even a lie, let alone like the whopper kind of the year. Anyway, the fact-checking industry writ large, I find to be incredibly problematic. I mean, they're basically like, hall monitors for the status quo, right? Anyone who kind of deviates from the status quo in any meaningful way is going to incur the wrath of the fact checkers. Daniel Dale specifically, and it wasn't in that part of the clip, but later on in the clip, for example, like he does this thing which I find just problematic from a fact-checking and journalistic standpoint, which is like, Donald Trump claimed that the Chinese want Joe Biden to win. Like our intelligence agencies say that the Chinese want Joe Biden to win because it's like he's citing the intelligence agency report or intel or whatever as fact. And I don't, that's not how that works. And the broader point being that facts alone have no content. Facts devoid of ideology are nothing. They're just random data points. If you don't connect them to tell a bigger story, they're essentially meaningless. And the biggest problem with people at CNN or any of the fact checkers is that they don't realize how much ideology is baked into their own quote unquote fact checks. And,
right.
It's plainly obvious for me to see, but they don't see it. They're like a fish in water. Like they don't know that they're in water, but they're drowning in ideology. But they just don't know that. They don't see it that way. They're just calling balls and strikes. But it's not true.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I agree with you in that regard, right? So in the context of this weird fact-checking media industry, excuse me,
Salud.
Daniel Dale annoys me, thank you, annoys me the least, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And it's because, he's not as awful as all the other examples you provided, where the so-called fact checkers clearly have a bias that's shining through in the way that they do fact checks on some politicians, like Bernie Sanders, versus others who lie and get away with it on a regular basis. Also, just the whole notion of fact checkers, the fact that is a slice of what the news industry does is ridiculous. Journalism is supposed to be fact checking.
There shouldn't be these
context.
other people. Yeah. There shouldn't be these other people called fact check. It's. But I mean, it's
like Anderson Cooper's one segment, Keeping Him Honest. It's
right.
Oh, you're dedicating one segment to keeping him honest? It's just ridiculous. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I guess the final thing I'll say is or not, maybe not the final thing. Maybe we can say more. But the other thing I'll say is that. There's a little bit of a kabuki performance to the whole thing that I find kind of too transparent for my taste. But the other thing is that, this big thing like you cited about calling Trump a liar, right? I mean, obviously Donald Trump's a liar, but so is Hillary Clinton, so is Joe Biden. They all lie. Politicians lie all the time, and it's like something that Adam Curtis says, in some of his documentaries, where it's like politicians lie. The public knows, understands that the politicians lie to them. The politicians know that the public knows that they are lying to them. It's just, so this big kind of breakthrough that they're calling Donald Trump a liar, it rings to, I think, the vast majority of people as kind of hollow, given that they would never do that for Hillary Clinton. When Hillary Clinton says, I'm going to put working families first, no one's going to call her a liar for saying that, but it's a lie. She would never do that. Never in her life has she ever put working families first, right? She's put other interests first, herself primarily, but also whoever, all her corporate masters kind of thing. So, and no fact checker is going to call that a lie, but it is. And everyone knows that.
I was just going to say, now I'm getting a little annoyed because we actually agree way more than I expected to. But yeah, look, you're absolutely right about that. It's selective fact checking. And let's also not forget that in many cases, and we've outlined some of them on this show, the media not only refuses to or fails to fact check certain politicians, it literally serves as stenographers for some of those lies. And so, or a lot of those lies. We talked about it in the context of foreign policy and how, the New York Times, for instance, just went ahead with the narrative from the OAS regarding Bolivia. And then later, very quietly did somewhat of an apology / retraction.
Whoopsie daisy. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that kind of narrative led to a democratically elected leader basically getting run out of the position that he rightfully would have won, right? So, So I think that those criticisms are valid. I think that in the grand scheme of things and in the context of what we're seeing right now, Daniel Dale annoys me the least.
I don't mean to pick on
That's
Daniel
all I'm
Dale.
saying. Yeah, that's.
I'm sure he's a good guy.
I felt bad.
He seems like a good. He seems like a good guy.
He seems nice.
He's a nice guy. But his fact check on Trump, like making fun of Kamala or / Kamala, and he's like, like when Trump's like, it drives you crazy, like it drives Kamala Harris is crazy when you, and he's like, no, it doesn't, like that's not a fact check. That's just not in any way, shape, or form like a legitimate fact check. I'm sorry, like you do not know for a fact that it does not drive her crazy. You just don't. I mean, there's no way to prove that. I mean, you have no idea what is like going on in her head. That is just not a journalistic fact, if that makes sense.
Yeah, look, the protective nature of how protective they are of status quo politicians, I think gets under my skin the most, right? Like if you have even a little bit of a criticism or critique toward the Bidens or Kamala Harris's of the world, they get upset. And that's what annoys me, because I think there are valid criticisms. Just because they stay away from those critiques doesn't mean that Americans don't notice the failures and that other people who actually want to do their jobs appropriately shouldn't bring them up. And that's what we do on this show.
Yeah.